my goodness. So I'm just curious, how many of you in this audience have ever been summoned for jury duty? Oh, wow, a lot of you. So you know the drill. On jury duty morning, after 2 or 3 months of trying to figure out how you could get out of it, on jury duty morning, you get up and you navigate through rush hour traffic by public transportation or in your car. You get to the courthouse and you, if you drove, struggle to find parking. And then you get through security, hoping you emptied everything out of your briefcase that might make the buzzers go off. And finally, you get to the juror's room or the jury room or the courtroom that you are to report to, right? And you get in there, and there are people around, and you sign in. And then, if you've ever done this, you know the highlight of the day, right? You sit and wait, hoping that you don't get called to a jury. But the highlight of your morning, if you go in the morning, is that you sit and wait. So in mid-June, I had been summoned for jury duty, and I did the drill. And I finally got to the courtroom and I signed in. And then I proceeded to find a comfortable seat and I sat. To my left was a gentleman in his mid to late 40s, Caucasian, friendly, I guess, as friendly as you would know when you go sit next to strangers. And on my right, there was a Latino man who was in his late 20s or early 30s. And of course, we had the requisite seat between us, right? Because we're strangers at that point. And I sit and I wait. Now, what you don't know is that the date was June 18th. And while that date may not mean very much to some of you, what happened the night before, on a Wednesday night, June 17th, 2015, was that a young man had gone into a church in Charleston, South Carolina. He shot and murdered 9 people whose skin color was very much like my own. So I had heard a lot of detail as I was driving in, navigating rush hour traffic, and by the time I sat down to wait, I didn't have anything else to do but began to think and reflect. And as I began to reflect, I thought, wow, I am here in a jury room. I wonder what it would be like if I was in this jury room and we were being called for the case of a young white man who had gone into a Bible study, studied the Bible with 9 strangers, and then stood up and shot them dead. And as I thought about that, I asked myself, Tracy, could you be a fair and impartial juror for this young man who did this horrible act? And as I reflected, I thought, absolutely, yes. I could serve on that jury. And I began to just breathe that in. And then my thoughts went to, what if it had been a young black man who went into a white church? Do I think he would have gotten or would be able to get a fair trial? Would there be jurors who would be able to sit and say, yes, I can be fair and impartial? And then the thought that went through my mind was, would he even be alive to go to trial? And from that moment, I began to think about different combinations. In the United States of America, what if that had been a Latino young man? In a Jewish community, what if it had been a Muslim going into a multi-ethnic Christian community? What if? What if? What if? And as I was thinking about that, I felt a touch on my arm. And the gentleman to my left looked at me with a little concern and asked 2 questions. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And that surprised me because I didn't know why he was asking me that. And in that moment, what happened was I realized that there were tears streaming down my face, that reflecting on not just what happened in Charleston, but the implications of it and what it says about our society and how we see people and whether we trust people and whether we love and respect everyone, that this is a horrible thing that would happen. But in that moment, for me, the question was not just about what happened on Wednesday night, but do I live in a society, do I live in a country where everyone is treated fairly and equally and is not judged based on stereotypes and assumptions? And I realized in that moment that my heart was breaking because deep, deep, deep down inside, I knew that the answer was, no, we are not living the values that we say are our core values in this amazing nation. So for my life's work, I do a lot of interaction with people related to diversity and inclusion and leadership development. And so in the next 3 or 4 days, I had all kinds of people asking me, but Tracy, this is horrible. What can I do? Well, Tracy, what are you doing? What are you going to do about this? Well, isn't it amazing that the families of those who were killed in Charleston are forgiving this young man? Lots of conversations. And what happened out of that was completely unexpected. So many people I engaged with wanted to do something. Now, many of us, when tragedies happen of any kind, whether they're a reaction to race-based hatred or violence or not, we're sorry, we express sorrow. You know, oh, isn't it horrible what happened to those people over there in that part of the country? You know, everything's okay where I am, right? But what happened in June of 2015 was that more and more people were saying, no, what can I do? This is not the nation I want to call home. This is not the way that I want to live. I want everyone to have the opportunity to live and breathe and create lives that work for them. And what became clear in many of those conversations was this. There was a shift. So you wouldn't be surprised if you heard me saying there needs to be more equity and more fairness because the color of my skin and my age and knowing that or guessing that, you know, I've seen a lot of pain for people of color. And you might expect me to speak up. But we know that having Black people speak up is nothing new, and it gets ignored or downplayed or perceived as self-serving. What was different and what is different now, and each one of you are a part of it, is this change to the realization that it's white police officers who need to say to other police officers, it's not okay to hide behind the excuse that I was fearful of my life when you're the one wearing the gun and you've been trained to handle conflict. It is time for white executives to say, wait a minute, to a manager who's hiring someone, oh, it's not okay for you to simply say, oh, this person is a better fit simply because you feel more comfortable with them and less comfortable with the Asian or the Indian or the African American or the Latino applicant who has similar credentials. What's different now is that all of the conversations that I've been having and all of the people who've been talking on Facebook have been saying, you know, what's mine to do, especially if I'm white, is to speak up and to stand up and to say, this is not how I want the United States of America or any place in the world to be. And so that challenge was inspiring, not just to me, but to many, many people. And as a result of that, there have been hundreds and actually into the thousands now of people who've been sharing resources and information and saying, what is mine to do? Mine to do might be to be an activist or to be on the picket lines or to go to a protest, but everybody doesn't have to be an activist. What is mine to do? Maybe it is to simply in my school or in my organization where I work to speak up and to stand up for fair treatment. What is mine to do? It's mine to do, no matter where I go, to talk to the people I meet, the people who are around me. And that's not just true for people who are Caucasian or who identify as white, but that's the shift that's happened this year. It is so very different. Now, everybody can't be and doesn't need to be an activist. Everybody doesn't need to be an advocate. Everybody doesn't even need to be an ally. But everyone needs to do what I suggest, and that is be an actionist. Take action. So before I close, let me take you back to the courtroom. And remembering that this stranger touches my arm and says, are you okay, and is there something I can do? And I don't know where it came from, but in that moment, I took a deep breath, and I looked at him and I said, yes, I'm okay, and absolutely there is something you can do. If you, as a white man, goes out and tells everybody you know, every opportunity you have, I am white, and I am no longer willing to allow black people to be killed, hated, or treated unfairly simply because of the color of their skin. He and I had that commitment. I asked him, he said, yes, I will do that, Tracy, and we met and we talked. And so I ask you, what is yours to do? What will you do when given the opportunity to speak up? What will you do when you're given the opportunity to stand up? I hope that you will help me create a world where everyone is treated with respect and where fairness and equity are the values that we not just talk about, but that we live.